The air was thick with humidity in the quiet town of Taiping, Malaysia, as the sun dipped below the horizon. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening when Siti Aisyah, a 28-year-old schoolteacher, locked her classroom and made her way to the parking lot. Her students adored her, and her colleagues often spoke of her gentle nature. That day, however, something seemed different. She had been quieter than usual, her mind elsewhere, and just before she left, she received a phone call that made her expression tighten with worry. She didn't say who it was, only that she had to go. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. New line. New line. When she failed to return home that night, her husband, Faisal, initially assumed she was working late. But as the hours passed with no response to his calls or messages, worry set in. By midnight, he contacted her friends, colleagues, and even some of her students' parents, hoping someone had seen her. No one had. The next morning, panic turned to dread, and he went to the police to file a missing persons report. New line. New line. The police launched an investigation, retracing Siti's last known movements. CCTV footage from the school showed her walking towards her car at 5:45 p.m. She paused, answered a call, and after a brief conversation, hurriedly got into the car. That was it. The cameras didn't capture where she drove off to, nor did they. It was as if she had simply vanished. New line. New line. 2 days later, her car was found abandoned on a deserted road about 20 kilometers from her usual route home. The doors were unlocked, and inside, her purse and mobile phone sat untouched on the passenger seat. There were no signs of struggle, no bloodstains, no broken glass. It was almost too neat. When investigators checked her call records, they found that the last call she had received came from an unregistered prepaid number. Whoever had called her didn't want to be traced. New line. New line. Then, a week after her disappearance, a fisherman on the Perak River made a gruesome discovery. A large suitcase, half submerged near the riverbank, had washed ashore. When he opened it, the stench of decay overwhelmed him. Inside, tightly wrapped in plastic, were human remains. The police were called immediately, and forensic testing confirmed what everyone feared. Siti Aisyah had been found. The autopsy revealed she had been suffocated, possibly with a cloth or a plastic bag. Bruises on her wrists and ankles indicated she had been restrained before her death. Whoever had done this had taken their time, ensuring she wouldn't escape. The state of decomposition suggested she had been killed the same night she went missing, meaning that for days, while her family hoped for her return, she had already been dead. New line. New line. As investigators dug deeper, attention turned to Faisal. His behavior during the investigation had been strange. He had been cooperative, even emotional at times, but something felt off. His alibi for the evening of Siti's disappearance was flimsy. He claimed to have been home watching television, but when police checked his phone records, they found inconsistencies. He had received several calls from another unregistered number around the time Siti vanished. When asked about it, he hesitated before saying it was probably a wrong number. New line. New line. Then came the biggest break in the case. CCTV footage from a toll booth captured Siti's car driving towards the area where it was eventually found. But the person behind the wheel wasn't Siti. The grainy image showed a man, wearing a cap, his face partially obscured. Investigators traced the black SUV seen near her abandoned car that night. It was registered to a man named Risal, a small-time criminal with a record of drug offenses. When police brought him in for questioning, he cracked under pressure. New line. New line. Risal admitted that he had been hired by someone to scare Siti, to teach her a lesson. The plan had been simple: kidnap her, threaten her, and force her to listen. But things had gotten out of hand. She had fought back, and in the struggle, he had panicked. He had pressed a cloth over her face, and before he realized it, she had stopped breathing. When asked who had hired him, Risal said it was Faisal. New line. New line. The truth was horrifying. Siti had been planning to leave her husband. For years, their marriage had been strained, with Faisal growing increasingly possessive. She had confided in a close friend about her intentions to leave him, saying she could no longer endure his emotional manipulation. Somehow, Faisal had found out, and instead of letting her go, he had arranged for someone to intimidate her into staying. But when Risal killed her, Faisal had no choice but to cover it up. During his trial, Faisal tried to deny his involvement, insisting that Risal had acted alone. But the evidence was overwhelming. The call records, the money transfers, and Risal's confession all pointed to one conclusion: Faisal had orchestrated the entire thing. In the end, both men were sentenced to life in prison. For the people of Taiping, the case left a lasting scar. Siti Aisyah had been a beloved teacher, a kind soul who had wanted nothing more than to live her life freely. Instead, she became the victim of the very person who was supposed to love and protect her. Her students never forgot her, and every year on the anniversary of her death, they gathered at the school to light candles in her memory, a small act of defiance against the darkness that had taken her away.